Hey, let's go live. It's been a while.
To make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Woo! Hello, everybody. Bob Luss, the Pond Boss. Let's go live and have a little conversation. You guys check in. Let me know you're watching, and we'll do a little talking here. I thought tonight we'd talk about managing small waters. So that seems to be a pretty popular topic. Before I really get into it, let's dig a little deeper into some of the things that have been going on here lately. I've kind of started learning a lot more about YouTube. So you guys, if you haven't checked out the Pond Boss YouTube channel, you need to do that. We've uploaded, I think, 5 podcasts that Chico and I have recorded, and they're all topic driven. You know, like this is. The difference is I'm able just to get on the topic, stay on the topic, and keep the topic rolling. You know, so I mean, we've talked about basic pond management, we've talked about raising big bass, we've talked about bluegills. You know, so you guys go to the Pond Boss YouTube channel, and you can start seeing what's there. I've also uploaded a number of little vignettes. Hello, Michael Larry. Good to see you, buddy. I knew you'd be checking in, buddy. I'm glad to see you. It's been a month since I've done this, so I'm really excited to spend a little time with you guys. So as I thought about what to talk about tonight, I thought, let's talk about small waters some. So you guys bring questions, and Michael, I know that you're managing some small waters up there in Iowa, so let's hear about some of those things, and let's cover some of the topics that you want to cover. One of the things I wanted to talk about is how important temperature is. Temperature is if I had to tell you guys one thing you really need to pay attention to when it comes to managing lakes and ponds, it's going to be temperature. Buy a thermometer. Check your temperature. Everything about managing ponds and lakes starts off with the temperature. The temperature of the water is what allows nature to do what it does, gives it the impetus to grow plants, to trigger a spawn, to alter fish behavior. So temperature is a big deal. Anthony Trimboli, good to see you, buddy. First time checking in from Kentucky. All right, that's cool. Glad to see you. I love it. I love it when new folks check in. Hello, Drew Schmidt. Drew Schmidt, you know what? You know the deal here. Remind everybody, what I'd like for you to do is hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section. Click like or put the little heart thing up there, and then share this to your timeline. Then you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. Now, I've got some of those over here on the shelf, on my bookshelf over here. Over there, there's one. See it right up. Holy cow! I don't know how to point my finger. Somewhere up there. Oh. So anyway, we'll have a drawing here in a few days, and I'll get Leanne to do that, and then we'll send somebody a hat. And spread the word. I'd like to get the Pond Boss YouTube channel out there a little bit. Mike Cottrell, good to see you. Palo Pinto County, good to see you, buddy. Deborah Corlew, you got it. Drew Schmidt, easiest way to determine the sex of bass and bluegill. This is the time of year to determine the sex of bass and bluegill. If you catch a fish, spread its little fins and look. Jack and Coke. Just a little bit, not enough to make me goofy. So to get a little more serious about that question, how do you sex fish? Well, this time of year, when the fish are getting ready to reproduce, the females, like with bluegills, their belly will look like there's a marble in it. And the males turn dark. Bluegills, the males are always darker than the females. The females' color will be more light. They'll be more of a pale color. And that's by design. The more colorful males, the more aggressive, the better nest they build. They're going to be more likely to go find a mate and be able to reproduce. Now, bass, on the other hand, the female bass are going to be distended. They're going to have a bigger belly. And if you if you hold them up by the lip and support their bellies, and you look at them, their bellies, if you look straight down the middle, if you're holding that fish straight up and looking at its belly, it's proportionately the same on each side. There's 2 ovaries inside of a bass, and they're both full of eggs this time of year, because in most places they haven't started spawning yet. Now, Florida, they're spawning. South Texas, they're spawning. South Louisiana, they probably are where Ron Ardoin is. And so the best way this time of year now, a male bass is going to be a little darker in color, but long and lean. So its belly's going to be drawn, and it's going to be long and slender. So that's the best way to tell the difference this time of year. Now, the way that fisheries biologists tell the difference between male and female bass is you could take a little, I'm going to get a little technical here. Sorry, it's the way it works. Get a little glass pipette. And those of you that took chemistry in college or even high school know what that is. It's a little glass tube. You can gently insert that little glass pipette into the vent of a female, and you can draw some eggs out and see the little yellow eggs. So if you want to do that, by golly, you can sure do that. But this is the best time of year to do that. Deborah Corlew, Drew Schmidt, yep, Tom Davis from Ohio, Jay Spire's been missing the live stream. Glad you're here. There's Ron. Hello, Wayne and Josie. I was hoping you guys would check in with us. David Schneiderman, EZ Docks of Texas, and one of our sponsors. Jay Spires did it. Anthony did it. The pond is full in Palo Pinto, says Mike. You know what, man? It's about time. You guys have been deserving some rain, and by golly, you got it. You're going to get some more. Hello, Richard Williams. Good to see you, buddy. Let's see what's going on here. Scott and Leah checking in. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that I was in your neighborhood yesterday. I made a fast and furious all-day run. I left Lusk Lodge or Lusk Landing, 3 about 4:20 yesterday morning, and I hooked it up and looked at the lake site southeast of Muskogee, Oklahoma. Then I went up to Glenpool to Champagne Metals. They're wanting to build a pond right outside their plant. Then I went down outside of Beggs over kind of east of 75 and north of Highway 16 and looked at the site there. And I ended up putting on 700 miles yesterday. I got home at 9 o'clock last night. So I didn't have a lot of time other than to go do what I needed to do, or I would have hollered at you. Well, that's my excuse, and I'm going to stick with it. I hope you'll take it, because I actually posted a picture on my Bob Lusk Facebook page of a very cool beaver dam that I saw yesterday on, I think it's North Highway 240 East, I think, north of Highway 16. If you get, guys, Scott and Leah, if you get a chance to go look at that, it's pretty cool. It's very cool. Anyway, I put that on my Facebook page, and I got kicked in the teeth from a couple of friends of mine that live up there. One of them was Dick Farrow, who used to be the weatherman up there on TV in Tulsa. He said, hey, you need to come by. Oops. All right, let me see what's going on here. David Schneiderman, EZ Docks of Texas. Gary Elborn, good to see you. Deborah, where can we get beneficial pond plants in bulk? We have a 10-acre pond and have a lot of sand and rock portion of water. Dug out the deep areas in a marsh, but we need underwater bog plants. You know, I'm going to tell you, there are some, let me think about it just a minute. It's escaping me one of the sources. But you know what? If you will look in the Pond Boss Resource Guide, or you know what? I'm not thinking of some of those suppliers. If you will email me, just put info@pondboss.com and email me, then I will send you some suppliers. I'm a little embarrassed I can't think of them right now, but you know what? I'm almost 68, so give me a little slack. But we can find something. You know what? Let me answer it like this. If you can get some arrowhead, some like Louisiana irises, dwarf cattails, lizard tail, plants like that, that's what you need to put in some of those areas of shallow water. Richard, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Jeff Bernard, need to electrofish a bunch of small fish out of the lake in Palmetto, Iowa. How can I get the conductivity of my water right? The more minerals that you have dissolved into the water, the better that it's going to work. So conductivity, and really, if you're going to electrofish, you know what? You need to get in touch with Kevin Bjornson. Kevin Bjornson, I don't know that he's got an electrofishing boat yet, but he works with Nate Herman Brothers, coming out of Illinois. But they've got the right kind of equipment that even if your water's soft, they can still do the electrofishing surveys. So give them a call. Find Kevin Bjornson and be sure and tell him I told you to call him. Look up Bjornson, Bjornsen, I think it is, Pond Management there in Iowa, and he'll be happy to do it. Let me see what we got here. Alexander Cohen, hey Bob, can you talk about bass mortality in regards to bleeding from the gills? Love your show as always. You've taught me a ton already. You know, that's a cool question. I haven't really ever thought about talking about that. But if you catch a bass and it's bleeding from the gills, it's just, you can pretty much chalk that fish up to being dead. So let's just cover this just a minute, because there's a really, really, really interesting fact that you're going to love. I'll get to it here in just a minute. But when you catch a bass and you hook it deep like that, be real, real picky about how you remove the hook. If you hook it in the gills, cut the line and just shove the hook through it. If you hook it deep down in the gullet, you can cut the line off, shove the hook down its gullet. But if you want to try to remove the hook, you've got some tools you can use, some hook removers that can help you do that. But when you catch a bass and it's bleeding from the gills and you want to release it, here's the interesting fact. Bass blood will not coagulate unless it's in the water. So the faster you get that bass back in the water, as soon as it hits the water, it's going to stop bleeding quickly and that blood is going to coagulate. Isn't that cool? Who knew? Jason Foley, yeah, you guys do need some rain and shoulders. And dude, I've been wanting to talk to you. Email me info@pondboss.com and send me your phone number. I wanted to visit with you about some things you got going on, especially with the hunting stuff. And I want to visit with you about your dog. That bugged me. I want to hear about it. Although I don't want to touch a raw nerve. Mike Cook, Boy Scouts from North Cackalack. Good to see you. Yep. Kurt McGlamory, Dripping Springs. Got to tell you a funny story. Back, I don't know, I guess it's been 5 years ago. Daughter Ashley was pregnant with baby Sawyer, who's now 4. So Debbie wanted to be down there when Sawyer was born, but it was made pretty clear that she wasn't going to be staying in the house. They wanted to have their privacy. They wanted to have birth. Now, I'm going to kind of go out on a little bit of a weird limb right now, but I'll tell you this. Today's parents, back in the day, which wasn't that long ago, folks, when a couple got married and the wife needed advice, she would talk to her mother and grandmother. And Grandma, how'd you do it? Or Mama, how did you do this? Whether it's a recipe or raising kids, or whatever it was, they would get advice from their grandparents. Ain't like that now. They go to the University of Google. Well, the University of Google teach people now about what they need to know when it comes to all kinds of life lessons. Well, Dripping Springs is near and dear to our heart because Debbie knew she wasn't going to be able to hang out at the house as this baby was born, and then after the fact, so we bought an RV and put it in an RV park in Dripping Springs, and we loved it. It was so much fun there because there's so many cool things right around there. So, I don't know why I told you that, but here we go. Palmetto, Louisiana. Yep, well, we ought to talk about that. Yeah, I've been there. I sure have. Kurt McGlamory helped a cousin escape the Seattle area, and now he lives just south of you in Pilot Point. Man, I know Pilot Point. Those Pilot Point Bearcats. There you go. Well, actually, Kirk, I now live near Granbury. So we sold our place up in Gordonville, and so now I live kind of southwest of Pilot Point, but I went through Pilot Point a couple days ago. Okay, Anthony Trimboli, have a quarter-acre spring seat fed pond, 12-foot maximum depth. It was stocked poorly by the previous owner. Now it's only got some redder sunfish and a few BNCP. Okay, so that might be black-nosed crappie. Okay, plan to fish out the crappie and move to a, holy cow, SBS, striped bass. I don't know what that is. I don't know all the acronyms, even though I made up about half of them. I don't know them. Do I want to wait and put the hybrid stripers in there next spring so they don't eat the stocked SBS? Oh, is that smallmouth bass? You got to help me out with this, dude. I'm struggling here, Anthony. So a 1/4 acre pond, 12 feet deep, red ear sunfish, black nose crappie. Plan to fish out the crappie. Good luck with that. You'll catch a bunch of them, but maybe not. And move to a hybrid striped bass big panfish pond. Okay, do I wait to put the hybrid striped bass in until next spring so they don't eat the stock SBS? I guess, is SBS, is that smallmouth bass? You got to answer that for me and let me know. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Let me think about this a minute. Do I wait to put the hybrid stripers in? Well, here's the bottom line. You want to build the food chain before you put any hybrid stripers anywhere. If you don't have a good food chain built, then now one good thing is hybrid stripers will eat fish food. But if you don't stock them in dense enough numbers, they're not as likely to come to the fish food quickly. Adam Harkness, I noticed you renewed your subscription to Pond Boss. Thanks. Hey, by the way, I don't think I have any. I didn't even think about bringing any copies of Pond Boss in here tonight. Although, you know what? I think I got one. Oh, here we go. Here's one right here. It just came in the mail. Believe it or not, I get copies of Pond Boss in the mail myself. That's how I know whether the post office is doing their job. Hey, $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. $35. And there's always some nuggets in each issue of Pond Boss that will help you, I promise. Black nose crappie. Okay, that's what I thought. Speckle belly sunfish. You know what, Anthony? I don't know what those are. I'm not sure what a speckle belly sunfish is. My apologies. Speckle belly sunfish. Here's what I know. Bluegill sunfish spawn in your neck of the woods 3 to 5 times a year. So they can help supply a food chain for hybrid striped bass as well as largemouth bass and even smallmouth bass if you've got those. So the bottom line is this, is you've got to build a sustainable food chain for your game fish to really grow and gain weight. If you don't have that, they're not going to grow and gain weight. So be sure that you've got the right types of sunfish in there to reproduce. The good news about hybrid stripers, like I said a while ago, they'll eat fish food. So if you want to feed them fish food, you can do that. It actually expedites the whole process. Jordan Halstead from Indiana. Just had 2 female mallards hanging out on my second-year pond today. I think they were drawn in by my mallard decoys. I've got duck boxes set up also. Odds they'll stay. I'm trying to stay politically correct on this. 2 female mallards. No, they won't stay. Now, the duck boxes, wood ducks will find those. The wood duck, now the mallards, they're going to make a nest somewhere. So if you got 2 girl mallards, they're looking for 2 boy mallards. They're normal. And once they find those boys, they're going to go wherever they need to go to be able to build a nest on the shore and reproduce there. They're not going to go in your duck boxes. However, I'm telling you this, odds they'll stay, 0. They're going to want to go find a mate and go make baby ducks, and they're going to migrate because that's what they do. Don't turn me in. Okay, so Jay says, do blue herons tend to stay away if there are geese or ducks in the pond? No, that's irrelevant to a great blue heron. A great blue heron will stay there, and they're territorial typically, and the only time you'll ever see another great blue heron nearby is when it's mating season and they're doing their little dance, which is kind of an awkward, geeky, in-flight, weird little dance, and you usually don't even know what's going on. But the blue herons have nothing to do with geese or ducks. They're going to wade in the shallow water, and they're going to feed in the shallow water. I've told this story before on this show, but I've got some new folks watching, so I'm going to tell this story again. Michael Eric could probably tell this story for me, and I know Ron Ardwan could. But right after we built Lusk Lodge Comatue, we built a pond right beside the house. I was up in upstate New York, I think, working on a project, and Debbie called me. She said, Lusk, where's your shotgun? Well, I've got a 410 shotgun that my daddy gave me when I was 12 years old, and I said, why do you want my shotgun? She said, well, there's this big, tall, gray bird out there eating your big bluegills by the feeder, and I want to shoot it. I said, well, honey, that's what they do to make a living. Don't mess with that bird. Besides, they're federally protected. You don't want to shoot a bird. Leave it alone. Well, about a week later, I got home, and we're outside, and I'm not a coffee drinker yet, but she drinks coffee every day. So we're sitting out on the patio watching the pond, and she's having a cup of coffee, and the feeder goes off, and here comes that great blue heron. And he lands right by the feeder, takes his neck, spears a fish, catches about a half-pound bluegill that I've been growing for about a year, drags it out on the shore, and starts trying to swallow it. So I was sitting in a rocking chair. I got out of that rocking chair, and Debbie looked at me and says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go get my shotgun. She says, you're not going to shoot Lurch, are you? She named him. So as I thought about it, I really did want to preserve those bluegill. I wouldn't have shot that bird, but what I did do is I went around and I changed the timer on the feeder to go off at night. And that way the bluegill could feed at night when that bird's roosting and he isn't going to eat our fish. So the heron doesn't have anything to do with ducks and geese. That's an independent deal. All right, let's see here. So to get the wipers to eat off feeders, how many per acre should a guy go? Okay, so what's the stocking rate on hybrid stripers? I'm going to tell you at a minimum of 25 per acre, and I'd rather see you stock 50 per acre, and then once they start finding the feed and those hybrid stripers get up to about half a pound to 3/4 of a pound, start culling some of them. And the bigger they get, the fewer per acre of water you really need, because you don't need that many 10-pound hybrid striped bass out there fighting in a food chain, competing with all the rest of them. So I'm going to say, Michael, I'm going to tell you start off with at least 25 per acre, but I think it's better to stock 50 per acre, but be prepared to cull some of them as they get bigger. Bill Cody turned you on to speckled bass. Oh, speckled bass, something cross between a bluegill and a red ear. Oh, okay. Okay, now I know what you're talking about. It's a cross between a bluegill and a red ear. See, there's not many hatcheries that sell those, and I know Bill Cody from Melinta, Ohio, the lake doctor, is a big fan of those fish. I just didn't realize they were called speckle-belly sunfish. Doug Brown, very tinted water, visibility 17 inches. Should I fertilize the pond? Visibility is always dark, so how would I know if you have a bloom? All right, let's cover that topic, because that fits in with my topic about managing small waters. When your visibility, now, I want you to know this. If you've got a small body of water, one of the things that's real important is to be monitoring the temperature. That's number one. Number two is monitoring the visibility. Okay, number three is watch when your plants begin to grow. If you don't know your water chemistry, it's a good idea to go send a sample in and get an idea as to what your pH is, what the alkalinity is. Do you have any metals, minerals? What do you have? It's a good reference point. Now, it may not necessarily give you any information to make decisions from, but what it does do is give you a reference point in case something happens that you don't understand, like the fish stop feeding, or you see a variation in pH. You know, if we know that your alkalinity is close to 0 and the pH is 5.3, and you got plants growing in there, you can pretty well bet that your pH is going to rise and fall during the course of the day, and that's stressful to your fish. So, temperature, visibility, understand or at least get a sample of your water chemistry so you can see what you've got to work with. Now, I'm not telling you to understand water chemistry. Hell, it took me 25 years to begin to get it. You know, so I'm not going to ask you on a podcast or a live broadcast to understand water chemistry. But what I will ask you to do is to get your water chemistry tested so you have a reference point, and then you can decide if you need to do anything about it later with the help of a guy like Bill Cody from Melinta, Ohio. You know, and so let's see here. Going back to the visibility, depends on the color of the water. If your water visibility is 17 inches and it looks like iced tea, that's different than if this visibility is 17 inches and it looks like chocolate milk, which is different than if it's 17 inches and the water is a green tint. So what you're after is alkalinity 40 parts per million or higher. Now some guys will tell you 20 parts per million or higher is better. 20 is marginally low. 40 is functionally sufficient and able to give you the ability to create a plankton bloom. So if the water is kind of a greenish tint or an olive green, something like that, and the visibility is 17 inches, don't worry about fertilizing. If the water is tea colored and the pH is 5.3 and the alkalinity is under 20, you can fertilize till the cows come home and it's not going to create a bloom because your alkalinity is too low. So here's a more direct answer. Visibility is always dark, so how would I know if you have a bloom? The water turns green. It will have a kind of maybe not a lime green color, but more like an olive green color, a drab green color. If you've got that, then you've got a plankton bloom. Jordan's telling me, I don't think you got to worry about being sexist while discussing ducks. Well, the thought crossed my mind, although it didn't really have much about sexist. It was more about gay ducks. Wait, no, I didn't really say that. My granddaughter's looking at me, smiling in there. You hear that, Gentry? Don't tell anybody. Hello, Mike McPherson from Indiana. Okay, Jason Nipstad. Oh, my gosh, good to see you, buddy. He is checking in from Fayetteville, North Carolina. You guys check out his page. That dude, he's growing some gigantic bass over there in this big lake. And he's got some fantastic videos of big bass chasing shad. Fantastic videos. So what Jason is saying, wipers never found their feeders, and I don't think they ever leave the deep part of the lake. Well, part of the reason is you've got shad. When you've got shad like that, the wipers don't even have a reason to come hang out with your bass. The Bass School Daily in Mass, of course they do, they're going to do that in shallower water where the wipers are going to hang out in deeper water. And the wipers, you know, I don't know what their numbers are, but they're going to be chasing shad where the bass, largemouth bass, are going to come up in shallow water. Now, if the wipers run out of food in deeper water, they will come shallow, but you know, they'd much rather live way out in the middle of the lake than they would come up in those shallow coves like what you guys have. Okay there, let's see what we got going on here. We've got, looks like we got 29 viewers, 18 reactions, 48 comments, which means I'm getting behind, 18 reactions, 7 shares. Okay, you know what? Hey, let me take a minute and let's pause for a little commercial. Palm Boss Magazine, here it is right there. Right there. $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. You know, it's well worth the money. I mean, every time I talk to subscribers, they're telling me things like, hey, I love the nuggets. They're always talking about nuggets. They get a nugget out of each issue, and never mind the fact that the magazine's what fuels the economy to help keep things going like what we're doing right here. But if you haven't subscribed yet, go to palmboss.com, subscribe, and welcome to the family. Easy Docks of Texas, David Schneiderman. He's not commenting on here much, but I know he's watching. If you're looking for a floating dock, if you want to talk about docks, get in touch with David Schneiderman. Friend him on Facebook after we finish this. Come back through the comments here and find him. Click on his Facebook page and friend David Schneiderman. He knows what he's doing. Texas Hunter Products, makers of outstanding fish feeders and hunting products. Just check them out. Check out TexasHunterProducts.com. Those guys are stellar. Not only are their products great, one of my favorite things about them is their customer service is astonishing. They're really good. Purina Mills. I'm going to go see Purina at the end of May, early June. We're going to go electrofish the lake at the research farm outside of Gray Summit, and we'll carry you guys along because we'll shoot some videos out there and let you see what's happening. If I have a strong enough cell service, have enough bars, well, we'll go live out there as we're electrofishing that 6-acre lake. HuntBirdDog.com. My son, Jonathan Luss, came up with this brilliant idea about a year ago, and he's implemented it, got the company going. What he did was he called me one day. He says, "Hey, Dad, I got a question for you." He says, "You know, I'm in my early 40s, raising kids. I can't do a hunting lease because I can't commit the time to go out there because we got soccer, we've got school, you know, we got all these activities. And all you guys in your 30s and 40s, y'all get that. I mean, I went through the same thing when I was raising Jonathan and his siblings. So he says, I would love to hunt. He said, but if I don't book with an outfitter, a year in advance, I'm not going to get to go hunting. So I'm thinking about this. Here's my idea, Dad. He said, I'm thinking about starting a company where it's going to be similar to like a VRBO or Airbnb, where people can come on our website, look at it, click, and if I wanted to go hunting 2 weekends from now, let's say you and I are having a beer and we said, hey, let's go have a father-son hunt. Would you like to do that? And you said, yeah. He said, well, we can't do that. So Jonathan Lusk has created huntbirddog.com. When you get a minute, click on that website and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's affordable. I mean, based on what you want to do, some of those things get pretty expensive, pretty pricey, but different strokes for different folks. But he's done everything from alligator hunts outside of Lake Charles, Louisiana. They've got something booked in South Africa to white-tailed doe hunts for $1,200 for a father-daughter, or a mother-daughter, mother-son, father-son. So anyway, go check out huntbirddog.com. It's pretty dadgum cool. And I tell you what's really cool about it is they're getting a lot of activity from people that have never hunted before. When I was growing up, I didn't hunt. My granddad didn't take me. My dad didn't take me. They were all busy living life. My granddad did take me fishing, and my dad took me fishing. So I kind of got that, but I didn't go hunting until I was in my 20s. And a client invited me down in Laredo, Texas. My good friend Kenny Dryden says, hey, we need to call some does. You want to put some meat in the freezer? I said, heck yeah. So I hoofed it down to Laredo, and I got to bust some does and butcher them with those guys. And now Jonathan's got some things going on that would probably be fun for you guys. You guys check it out and see. Let's get back on topic here. I'm sitting here bragging about my son. He's doing pretty good, though. All right, so Kirk McGlamory, the bass spawn is in progress in the Hyman Lakes chain here in central Texas. I noticed that the red buds just started to bud when the spawn started. What external clues should I look for to show that the spawn is nearly over? You're not going to believe this. You see this little piece of paper? I took a few notes on that. And just so I make sure I'd have a few topics. I did this like at 6:20 before I started the show. This is so cool. When red buds start to bloom, the white bass run is on. When the second piece, it's also a trigger. The largemouth bass are staging and getting ready to lay their eggs. I always remember Buzz Hartley from Kingman, Kansas, Hartley Fish Farms. I met him like in, I think, the fall of 1981. And one of the things that he's told me that was singed into my brain, and he kind of had this wry smile when he told me this. He says, hey, Bob, listen, when the bullfrogs croak, the the largemouth bass are spawning. And I looked at him, I remember looking at him kind of funny, like, where in the hell did he get that? Well, remember the first thing I said as we started this show tonight, everything's about temperature. Bullfrogs start to come out, start to do their mating calls at the same temperature that largemouth bass spawn. When the red buds bloom, white bass are running. Sand bass, we also call them. They're running. Largemouth bass are getting ready to stage, and they're ready to lay their eggs. And as I'm driving through work right here in north central Texas, even in Oklahoma yesterday, I saw red buds popping up everywhere. As I got closer to Tulsa, the red buds were just beginning to bloom, whereas down around Austin, the red buds are just about finished. So another thing is in Texas, when mesquite trees bud out, no more freezes. In my 67 plus years of being on this planet, I have seen one spring, one time, and it was like 4 or 5 years ago, when the mesquite trees had budded out, leafing out, and we had a freeze. Mesquite trees, when they bud out, there won't be another freeze after that. And so those are some of the little natural triggers, some of the clues that you can look for. So what external clues should you look for to show that the spawn is over or nearly over? Follow the temperature. Follow that. Now, what will happen is the bass will start moving shallow. The males will make beds. That's going on about the time the red buds are blooming. And then they'll go entice a female that's ripe and bring her in. The male will bump the female and she'll squirt some eggs out. He'll fertilize them. And when she's had enough of that, she'll go off and she may go to another nest and spawn with another male. Now, the bigger the female bass are, this is pretty cool. You guys are going to like this. The bigger the female, the more eggs they have. They're not necessarily ripe all at the same time. So bass spawn in phases of the full moon. So when the moon is full, bass are spawning when the bullfrogs are croaking and the red bud trees have bloomed out and the water temperature's in the low 60s. That's when the bass are spawning the heaviest. Now, those great big females, when they lay their eggs, they don't lay all of them because they're not all mature. So then, after they spawn and the moon phases are changing like they're doing right now, those females will go out and they'll feed more, they'll gain a little bit more weight, more eggs will mature, then in the next phase of the full moon, they'll spawn again. So it's not unusual for a large bass, large meaning 8 pounds or bigger, it's typical that they're going to spawn a couple of times in the spring, and then depending on the temperatures, I've actually seen 3 spawns in the spring, and on a rare occasion we'll see a 4th one in the late summer after those females are getting rid of their eggs because it's time for them to generate new eggs by about August or September. So, hope that's a good enough answer because that's all I got. Owen Nelson, 3/4 acre pond, 25 feet deep, fresh well water to keep full, fight filamentous algae grows up from the bottom. I've been using a magic bacteria conditioner. Okay. Still an algae challenge on shorelines. Does this overpriced stuff do any good? I tell you what that stuff does. Here's the thing about filamentous algae. Filamentous algae grows in cycles, and it's continually growing. It's got a really short lifespan. Maybe a week to 10 days, 2 weeks tops. Then it outgrows itself and it dies and it sloughs. Then new algae starts to grow. So when you treat that algae with like an algicide, you're going to kill it temporarily. It's like mowing the grass. Now, all those organic bacterial products, their mission is to break down dead algae. When you see a mat of algae on top of your pond, it's dead. And if you start looking at it, I'll tell you how to really see what you're looking at, understand it. Look at the different shades of green. You'll have light green, bright green, dark green, yellowish, brown. All those different colors you're going to see in those floating mats of algae. Well, those are all those floating mats are dead, and they're in different stages of decomposition. What the bacteria does, the beneficial microbes do, is they break down that dead algae faster and help expedite its decomposition. Now, that's the good news. The less than good news is the faster it breaks down, the more it releases its nutrients, making those nutrients available, hopefully for a plankton bloom, but if not, that's going to grow more algae. And so in order to really interrupt the growth of algae, you need something that can take it out. So Green Clean or copper-based algicide, Cutrine, KT, there's a number of products. Go to Aquaplant website for Texas A&M. They have got all the different treatment plans, protocols. What I would look at, Owen, is how can you knock out that algae? I would use Green Clean or Cutrine, depending on where you are and what kind of fish you have. I would kill it and then use the microbes to break it down. And that way, if you can get those nutrients broken down and get them suspended back in the water column, then you're more likely to get a bloom. Is there a place with a list of where to send water samples? I don't know where there's a list, but I tell you where I send my water samples. I send mine to the Soil Sciences Lab at Texas A&M University. You can pay for it online, pick the $40 test. Then there's also the Aquatic Diagnostic Lab at Texas A&M. Now, if you're going to send them a sample, you need to call them and talk to them first. You can talk to Brittany Chesser there or talk to Dr. Sink there, Todd Sink, and let them know what you want to do and then counsel with them, visit with them. They're going to counsel with you and then you can send them a sample, and then they'll test for the things to do. Okay, so Adam's asking, where is the best place to buy Floyd tags? Buy them from Floyd. That's a good one. Also, I think Greg Grimes sells them on his website at Lake Management Services. Look up Greg Grimes. Go to Greg Grimes' Facebook page. But you can also go to Floy, F-L-O-Y, and you can buy them straight from them. Okay, Mindy Smith. What a great question. I love this. Is it a good idea when stocking a pond for the first time to stock different size classes of bluegill? You know what? I think so. And I'll tell you why. You know, the traditional stocking methods, typically we're going to stock little bitty bluegill first and let them grow up in the pond and let them get adjusted, conditioned, groomed, whatever you want to call it, in that body of water. But if you'll stock 3 different size classes like you're talking about, those 4 to 6 inch bluegill will begin to reproduce immediately. They will fight to build the nest and then keep those smaller fish at bay and force them to get bigger to take their places. So I'm going to tell you this. Yes, it's a good idea to stock different size classes of bluegill, especially if your goals are to grow big bass or, you know, whatever the mission is. I'm expecting it's probably going to have something to do with largemouth bass. But is it a good idea to stock different size classes of bluegill? The answer to that is yes, especially if it's based on your goals. This is goals. Hello, Mark Williams, Dr. Williams from up there in northern Arkansas. Might be a silly question, but can one use basic pool or hot tub water test strips to check alkalinity? Yeah, but it's not always accurate. Not always accurate. The thing about testing it, if you want to test for pH and test for alkalinity, that's where it's helpful is if you don't have enough alkalinity or you have more than you need. So if you're trying to, here's the thing is they can be accurate but not precise. There's your answer. So if you're checking alkalinity, if you want to check it with pools, hot tub test strips, go ahead and do that, but send a sample in and have it analyzed. Mark Williams will vouch for Texas Hunter. Yes, good deal. Okay, so Tyler Shaka Markley, I would stock the biggest only. I disagree with that. I think the reason that you want to stock multiple size classes is because that's what nature wants to provide you anyway. Nature wants to give you multiple size classes, and if you stock with the recommended numbers in a brand new pond, like for example, if you stock that 1,000 small bluegills and say a couple of hundred intermediate sized bluegills and 50 large bluegills per acre, those 3 size classes will complement each other, and those small fish are going to grow up and get bigger, even if some of them get eaten along the way. So I respectfully disagree with that advice. Where Tyler is correct, if you stock big bluegills, like for example, if you got like what we had at LL, we had 2 1/10 acre hatchery ponds. I would put like 30 adult bluegills in each one of those ponds and put them in like this time of year, and boy, by fall, we'd have 10 to 12,000 little bitty bluegills. But that's all we had in the pond. You know, so with the mission being that you want to establish a fishery for game fish, that's where I see the difference. Hello, Larry Hardesty from Hayden, Alabama. Yep, Jay Spires, there's another good testimony for Texas Hunter. Larry Hardesty called some bass, added 500 bluegill, hoping they make it. If those bluegill are big enough, they'll make it. Jason Nebstad stocked 800 wipers, 4 to 6 inches about 4 years ago. They got to be getting giant. Yep, and as big as your lake is, that's not a big number. Steve Thorburn fishing in South Dakota, checking in for the live broad. Good to see you there, Steve. Hope you're having a few fish. Jason Nebstad, Doug Brown is asking, that lake is well over 100 acres, so it's pretty big. Ron, had a family of otters getting to stay for a couple of weeks. Well, good luck to you. Cheers to the otters. They're feeding well. Yep. Otters took the bigger bass, found tags of bass that were 3 to 5 pounds, and the feed-trained northerns do not hit fish food or artificial lures like they did before the otters. Okay. Can otters shut down the fish from biting artificial? Absolutely they can. And can they change the conditioned behaviors of fish to survive their attack? Yes, they can. they can do that. If the otters are aggressive, which they are, otters are aggressive. They don't know what they're doing. They're out to eat fish. But when those fish realize that something's trying to eat them, then their mode changes from thrival to survival. So they're no longer thriving. It's more about surviving. So they're going to go hide, and they'll feed when they're hungry. So otters definitely make a big change in fish behavior. So I would encourage their exodus, which you knew that. Okay, so Steve Thorburn, South Dakota. Bluegills and perch are biting. Very few lakes are accessible. Snowed in all over. Very different than old Texas. Yep, it really is. Okay, Jason there. Jason's telling all about it. Look at that. You guys are carrying on conversations. That's very cool. Look at you guys. Mindy Smith, will 8-inch channel catfish eat the fathead minnows that's stocked at the same time? Yes, they will. They will. They will eat fathead minnows. They definitely will. Now, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to eradicate fathead minnows, but the question is, will 8-inch channel cat eat fathead minnows that's stocked at the same time? They'll eat some, but you know what you can do with channel catfish? You can minimize their predation by feeding them. And they are notoriously lazy. If they've got fish food to eat, that's what they'd rather do. Peyton got his list together. All right, buddy. Well, you and I'll have a conversation here today, and we'll start scheduling. Peyton's asking, what is in your opinion, is the best water test kit? I'll tell you my very favorite go-to water test kit. Probably costs $500, and you got to use it because some of those chemicals expire after 6 months to a year. But I love the Hach, H-A-C-H, Fish Farmer Test Kit. That is by far my favorite one. I love that. And I've had probably 5 of those in my career, and that kit is my go-to kit. Now, the thing about Peyton is in the wildlife management business, and he's also started doing some pond management work. So Peyton has got a need for that water test kit. Most people don't. Now, Hach sells alkalinity test kits. They sell pH test kits. They sell all kinds of cool stuff. But the question that Peyton's asking me is about, holy cow, I heard the doorbell ring. Somebody just came through the gate. Let me see what that is. Okay, I got it. All right. So that is my go-to, Hach, H-A-C-H. Okay, so there's Jason. Okay, Mike McPherson, when I stock my pond, I also got fish in different hatcheries for possible different genetics. That's a great idea. Not sure if it'll be beneficial or not, but hopefully it will make a positive influence. There you go. That's Mike. That's great thinking. Dude, you're right on it. So here we are at 7:18. Throw me some more questions if you can. But in the meantime, what are some of the things that you need to be looking at with small waters, like with Ron's pond? Ron, I can't imagine the otters wiping out some of your fish, but I think I know who you're talking about a few miles away from you at one of your clients' lakes. So this time of year, as the water temperature rises, you're going to see spawning activity. Feeding activity is going to begin to escalate, and the temperature window is going to open for plants to grow. So be aware of plants beginning to grow. You know, it's a good idea to take a heavy spoon with a treble hook on it, throw it out there, drag it along the bottom, and see if you catch any plants. And start to identify the plants, because this is about the time of year, especially in southern tier states. Michael Eric, you're still 2 or 3 weeks away from this. You know, South Dakota, you're 6 or 8 weeks away from this. But when you can start throwing out a treble hook and start picking up, you know, the different plants, identify those plants so you're not surprised by them, because once the window opens temperature-wise, those plants are going to grow and thrive and just get crazy fast. And it's temperature related. Small ponds, start feeding. The southern tier states, you need to be feeding now. Iowa, Iowa, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, Kentucky, you guys need to be feeding within a couple of weeks and start to see your fish grow. South Dakota, you know, you need to be picky about whether you're going to feed up there or not, because you have this deal called winter. We don't want to be changing your water chemistry. Minnesota, Wisconsin, I think. It's against the law to feed fish. Go figure. I don't know what the hell those people are thinking, but feeding fish now is a good time. Get that going. See, I got some things popping up. Let me look here. Ron is concerned about drought conditions. You know, the thing about drought is you can't do anything about it. You know, I used to worry about it, but I don't worry about it anymore because you can't do anything about it. But what you can do is you can make sure that your aeration systems are working. And there's two big things about drought and pond management. Number one, you want to keep your water happy. In a drought, as water evaporates, only thing that leaves is the water. Everything dissolved in the water stays back. So that means, let's just say, for example, and remember this, the top 3 feet of your pond is usually the same volume of water as the rest of the pond. So if you lose 3 feet to evaporation and your hardness, for example, your alkalinity was 100 parts per million, when that thing evaporates 3 feet, all those numbers double. So that changes the chemistry of the water. You know, now up at Childress, where Jason lives, you know, it's even more magnified because drought really, really hits that part of the planet harshly compared to where Ron lives down South Louisiana. So keeping the water happy is a big deal. The second thing is to be sure you got habitat in the pond in that deeper water, so when the water draws down, that the fish that are consolidated and congregated down into that smaller body of water have some places that they can escape. Now, when the occurs and the water's dropping a foot a month, and you get 3 months down and you've lost 3 feet of water, the good news is that's when the game fish grow the best. And then when you get a rain, it fills back up. New space, new spawns, the whole dynamics change. Let's see here. In January session, you touched briefly about gizzard shad and big bass. Can you expand upon the gizzard shad habitat I should be looking for? Well, gizzard shad, okay, now, I'm going to make this a qualifying statement. I like gizzard shad where we have a mature bass population where a significant number of those largemouth bass are at least 17 and a half inches or bigger. That's when I like gizzard shad. Now, gizzard shad, when they lay their eggs, they spawn their eggs, they're semi-buoyant, they spawn, they're fertilized, and the parents wish them luck. And they either hatch or they don't. And when they hatch, the babies go around in schools of similar sized fish in open water, and they're filter feeders. They grow fast. Once they hit about 3.5, 4 inches, then they become bottom feeders. So where gizzard shad grow the best are ponds that have a lot of shallow, muddy water, muddy bottoms, because you know why they call a gizzard shad? Has a gizzard. So they're down rooting around in the bottom, and they're eating, so to speak, mud. And the mud goes into their mouths because they have a mouth on the bottom, so they're bottom feeders, they're bottom dwellers. And they will bring that mud, organic matter into their gut, and they have a long intestine, like 5 times as long as the fish is. And the gizzard breaks up the crunchy stuff, then the fish digests it, gains weight, and then poops out mostly dirt. You know, so they need shallow water, muddy bottoms, and they're going to thrive in that. Okay, so let's see here. Tyler Markley, do geese eat chara? Not really. Geese would much rather eat terrestrial plants. I think we have chara in our pond. After the geese have left, seems like the chara has been suppressed. Now, there are other water birds that will eat that. Now, I tell you what I have seen geese do. I've seen geese rooting around in the bottom of a pond because they will eat like the seed heads off of American pondweed, things like that, which this time of year you don't see that, but they will churn up the water, and I can see them breaking up the chara and suppressing it by being active in shallow water. I can see that. But geese typically would rather be walking along the shore trying to eat grass in a field. That's what they'd rather do. Let's see, but I can see how geese can suppress Cara. I can see how that could happen. And I can also see how water's 40 degrees where you are. Adam says, what's the best temperature to seine a hatchery pond? Got my new net from Memphis. Oh, I don't know where my brain comes up with this stuff that I can't say. The best temperature to seine a pond. Oh, I so want to say this. I'm not going to say it. It's when you can get in it and your voice doesn't change octaves. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Really, a good time to seine a hatchery pond is when the water's cool. Now, be sure that you've got everything set up that when you seine the pond, you can move the fish fairly quickly. You don't want to seine in the heat because heat is hard on the fish that you catch. You don't want to seine in the coldest part of the winter. So I'm going to tell you spring and fall, that's the very best times. In the fall, you're going to harvest a crop that you grew all year long. In the spring, you're going to cull a bunch of the fish to get them out of there to make room for new fish that are hatched. So do it now. I think that's pretty cool. Got your net from Memphis Net and Twine. Mindy Smith, will Aquamax MVP be beneficial for the smaller? Yes, it will. There's 9 sizes of pellets in Aquamax MVP, and the smaller pellets sink slowly through the water column, and those little 1 to 3 inch bluegill, they can eat it. And even if they can't swallow it whole, they can grab it, hold it in their mouths, and let it soften, and then they'll peck it. Let's see here. Mark Williams, I'm seeing comments about geese. I think they're beautiful to watch, land, etc. But one, they crap on the shore, and dogs. Oh yeah, yeah. One thing. I can't remember who told me this, but I chuckled when I heard it. It's when a goose eats 1 pound of anything, it poops 2 pounds. So they really, really are messy, and their waste is hot. So when they do eat a lot, and they poop a lot, they're putting that into your water, and it's hot. It's a hot mess. You really don't want very many geese on your pond at any time. Yeah, don't shoot a blue heron. We all talked about that earlier. I never shot one. Hayden Wagner, hey Bob, I have a 3-acre pond that's seeping out of the bottom of the dam. Have you used Soil Flock? Yes, I have, and I like it. Soil Flock is a great product, especially when you, with your question that you're saying there, the pond is seeping out of the bottom of the dam. Soil Flock could be a good choice for that. Now, if you've got a pond that's seeping out of the bottom and you really don't know where the holes are, it's going to be a crapshoot with whatever product you choose. You could choose sodium bentonite. You can choose Soil Flock. You can try to dump clay in there or whatever. But if you know it's seeping through the dam and you can target that spot with Soil Flock, that's a good use for that. Jason Nipsad, what will be the negative effects on our lake if gizzard shad overpopulate? Here's the negative effects to that. The negative effects to gizzard shad overpopulating is once they reach a certain density, and I don't know what that is. It might be 300 or 400 pounds per acre of gizzard shad that are 10 to 14 inches long. They give off a pheromone that disrupts reproduction of not only that species, but the other species of fish. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is when gizzard shad get to the point that they've overpopulated, there's enough of them that aren't getting the nutrition they need that they begin to deteriorate and they're subject to dying in the wintertime. So nature kind of has a magic way of thinning the herd. Even if you got a pond full of mud, nature's got a way of thinning the herd. I'll always remember when I was in my 20s, there were several lakes in East Texas where gizzard shad had overpopulated just crazy, and there were no baby bluegills, no baby bass, no baby nothing. Well, I got a call from one of these lake owners, and I was trying to figure out why his fish weren't reproducing. I didn't really know because that information wasn't out there. And he called me, and he had a bunch of gizzard shad congregating around his dock. Well, I loaded up a 200-foot seine, 1/4-inch mesh, and I hooked it over there, and it was in January. The water's pretty cold. And sure enough, he had thousands of gizzard shad around his dock. So we loaded the seine in a boat, and we took the boat around, feeding the seine off into the water. And then I put on a pair of chest waders, which weren't quite tall enough. And we herded those shad. So we made a big loop with that big long seine, and we herded those as many shad as we could out from under the dock, and then pulled the seine around the dock and started dragging it up. And we took out over 1,200 pounds of gizzard shad out of that 30-acre lake in that one day. And the next spring, started seeing baby bluegills, started seeing baby bass, saw baby shad, and it completely changed the dynamics of that whole fishery. So that worked out pretty good. So the negative effects on your lake is you'll start to see less reproduction. Now, the good news about a lake that size is you're probably not going to end up with an overpopulation of shad, because in today's world, there's enough cormorants to help thin them out. See, back then, we didn't see those. All right, so Tyler said, I'm going to wrap it up here. We've been going over an hour. Even after our coldest temperatures in the pond freezes over, the Cara was still there. Hate that stuff. Makes fishing the pond no fun, especially when trying to get the kids active. Yep, I get that. Now, I'll tell you what, though, in fairness, I like Cara more than I like some plants that if you kill the Cara that would take over, like bushy pondweed, for example. The Cara is going to grow up 6 or 7 inches off the bottom, where bushy pondweed can grow all the way to the surface and suck nutrients out of the water. But I get your point, Tyler. I hear you. Let's see, there's Dustin checking in. Hello, Bob. Been busy. Sorry I haven't been on live. Well, hey, haven't been doing live, so we're even. Deborah Corley, we've heard that using black pond dye will deter herons, pelicans, because the way the dye makes a reflection, they cannot see the fish. Is this true, or a better way to keep especially pelicans off our water? You can try that. I don't know that it's that effective, and I would give it a try and see. I can't tell you that it will help, but nothing wrong with it. Dave Weber received Beyond the Basics. Sweet, that's cool. Finished on Saturday. Good stuff. Hey, thanks. Hey guys, listen. Hey, be sure and check out the Pond Boss YouTube channel. We got some pretty cool videos. Got all our podcasts there. I will upload this one in a couple of days onto the YouTube channel so you guys can do it. Be sure to check out our sponsors. Buy a subscription to Pond Boss Magazine. $35 a year. There it is right there. There's the new one. It's hitting the mailboxes as we speak. You know, in Texas Hunter Products, Purina Mills, David Schneiderman, ZZ Docs of Texas, and HuntBirdDog.com. So, hey, this hour flew by like they always do. I'm really glad we got to hang out. I appreciate it. And so, until next time, I'll be coming live once a month, but each Wednesday at 6:30, you'll see a podcast come live on the YouTube channel. So be sure and check in there. So until then, I appreciate you guys hanging out. This was fun. I loved it. And we'll see you next time. I'll post the next date. I'm going to go live on the Pond Boss Facebook page. So until then, adios.